everyone. Right, we have been doing about the animals in the Bible, different animals. And so far, we've done... You're going to... No, she's already seen that. We have already done a lion, how God closed the mouth of a lion. We've already done about a fish and how God provided money inside the fish's mouth using a fish. That was crazy, wasn't it? And today, we're going to do, Eliza's already seen it, we're going to do about a snake. Now, there's quite a few snakes in the Bible, but this is a particular story. So, first of all, I just wanted to read this verse. It's in Job, and it says, "But ask the beasts," that's all the animals, "and they will teach you. The birds of the heaven, and they will tell you." And then it goes to verse 10. "In his hand is the life of everything, and the breath of all mankind." So that is reinforcing what we've been saying each week, that God is in control of everything. He's in control of the animals. So I want you to keep that in mind as you listen to today's story about this snake, okay? So we're going to jump kind of halfway into a story, and you probably already all know the story of Moses and how he led the people out of Egypt, through the Red Sea, and they're now in the wilderness, okay? It's like a desert. Not very nice place, but they're in the wilderness, okay? And they had to go, they were at a point in the story where they had to go a long way round. They couldn't take the shortcut through Edom. They had to go around Edom, the long way. Oh, it was so boring. And you know what? They all were getting fed up, and they started moaning. And they started grumbling. "Oh, I'm tired. I'm hungry." And they started really grumbling then. And they actually started getting cross at God and Moses. "Why have you taken us out of Egypt? We'd rather be back there." Egypt, where they were slaves. They wanted to be back there. They said, "You brought us here to die." When really, just a few verses before, God had just saved them from the Canaanites and given them a great victory. But now they're telling God, "You've actually want us to die, don't you?" Is that true? Does God want that for them? No. Do they trust his plan? No, they're not listening. And then they said, "We're hungry. We've got no water. We've got no bread." And God had just provided them water coming out of rocks. He provided for them every single day bread from heaven. It's a bit like when we say, "I'm starving," and we just had our tea about 10 minutes ago. And really, they had bread and they had water, but they were saying, "We've got no bread, and we're hungry, and we're miserable." And they were moaning at God and at Moses. Do you know what? It made God angry. And so he did something that's very serious, because when we're grumbling, it's called sin. And there's a punishment for sin. And God did something. He sent, they're called in the Bible, fiery serpents, okay? Now, this one's green, but it says that they might have been red in colour. They were poisonous snakes. And when they bit you, it was very dangerous. And some people were dying, and it was very serious, okay? Now, these snakes have probably lived in that area the whole time, but God had protected them and not let the snakes come near. But this time, God said, "I'm going to send them." So he used the snakes to actually bring punishment to the people for their unbelief, okay? Now, the people, they went to Moses, and they said, "Moses, we've sinned." And, you know, they recognized that they'd sinned. They recognized that they had done this against God and moaned, and they realized that. They said, "We sinned. Please ask God to take the serpents away." And so what God told Moses to do next was, he said, "Can you make, not a real snake, can you make a snake out of bronze? And can you put it on a stick like this, a staff, a pole?" Okay? And then he asked Moses to hold up the staff. And he said, if you look at this bronze snake, you will live. So all the people that had been bitten by snakes and were very poorly, if they looked at this bronze snake, they could live. That's a bit strange, isn't it? Do you think the bronze snake was what made them better? Do you think that's what healed them and got them better? No. Do you know what? It was the act of faith in trusting what God had told them to do, his plan, in the looking and trusting that they would be healed. And do you know what? This same verse, this same illustration is used later on in the Bible, in John 3, and it talks about when Jesus is going to be put on the cross. And it says, as Moses lifted up the staff, so must Jesus be lifted up on a cross. That's a funny comparison. But you know what? It said that this snake was a picture of their sin. And when Jesus was lifted up on the cross, he became sin for us. He was lifted up. And if it says we look at Jesus, let me get the verse right. Whoever believes in him may have life. So if we look at Jesus and trust what he's done for us, it says we will have life, because we're all sinners too, aren't we? And we need to look to Jesus on the cross and trust his plan for salvation, and actually we will have life. So we can be cured too, like they were in the desert. So when you see a snake next, maybe in the zoo, they've got some poisonous snakes in things there, but we don't have any, don't worry, we don't have any in this country out in the wild. Just, you might see one in the zoo, behind a cage or something. But remember God's plan, and remember how he can, if we look to him, there is life. There is life, and he can cure us. What a lovely picture that is, and another example of how he uses animals in a different way. We're going to go back now and learn our verse.